Hello, pattern readers. It has taken me forever to get to this book tag. I blame Rhythm of War, but I did really want to get to this Wheel of Time book tag called The Way Back, which was created by Jenny from Lesby Nerdy. And she wrote some great questions. Plus, I was tagged by two other awesome YouTube channels that I will tell you about. The first was the Gleemen, which is a Wheel of Time channel that's always doing some interesting topics. Plus, they do some first-time reader check-ins, which can be fun whether you're new to the series or not. I was also tagged by Ultimate Book Maniacs, which is another channel that I encourage you to check out. They've been around for a while and they have some great Game of Thrones content, but they're just recently getting into Wheel of Time content as well. So it would be great to support that. And there's other content for different TV shows and book series that you might be interested in. So links to all of these channels are in the description. Now, for the most part, this video is going to be pretty spoiler-filled for the whole Wheel of Time series, but I am going to section the video and give a description for each section that will show which books are spoiled in each one. So if you need to, you can hover over the progress bar to see those descriptions and help you figure out if some of this is safe for you. Number 1. Favorite and least favorite Wheel of Time couples. So I'm only going to just very briefly mention my actual favorite couple because they've already been talked about a lot, including by Jenny, who started this book tag. And that is, of course, Lan and Nynaeve. You really can't go wrong with this choice. And they're going to be played by Daniel Henney and Zoe Robbins. I mean, just look at them. It's going to be so good. I will just briefly say that a lot of the romances in the Wheel of Time have some weaknesses or things I would change for the TV show. But for Nynaeve and Lan, the only thing I would really change is to add scenes for the two of them as they're falling in love. This doesn't really happen in the books because Nynaeve only has a couple of viewpoints in the Eye of the Worlds, but this is something the show can easily remedy. And I wouldn't really change anything else for them. The other reason why this couple works better for me than a lot is because there's some longing in their storyline, some legitimate reasons why they're apart and why they believe they can't be together. And that longing, when it's done well, is often what kind of elevates a romantic storyline for me and makes me actually ship a ship. But let me transition to talking about the couple that I'm actually picking as my favorite for the purposes of this video. And I'm mixing things up a little bit and choosing one that's actually unpopular, but that I like. Now, I've talked before about some things I like about Perrin and Faile, but let me make a real case for them now. What I find really refreshing about this pairing is the growth we get to see from them over the course of the series, because it starts off, they really seem like a mismatch. They're young and they're in love, but they have such a hard time communicating, and their cultural backgrounds are so different that they often misunderstand each other. Faile has a ton of maturing to do, and Perrin is just out of his depth with her. There are legitimately some moments with this couple early on that I actually hate, most notably the whole scene with the two of them in the ways in The Shadow Rising, which I hope the show makes some changes to. Basically, Perrin lying to Faile manipulating Perrin, Faile hitting Perrin, and then Perrin spanking Faile when she doesn't stop. It's all terrible. But here's the thing. Having these kinds of problems communicating, having to learn how to understand your partner, how to love your partner in the way that they want to be loved. These are real problems that actually couples face. And because Perrin and Faile spend so much of the series married to each other, we actually get to see them work through these problems to grow and mature and become better as a couple and better individually. It's really rare, I think, that we get to see that kind of growth happen and to see a married couple work through their problems and become a stronger couple. So I think that is really wonderful. And that's why I'm a big fan of this pairing. Now, least favorite. And I'm picking one. There were a few that I could pick, but I'm kind of steering myself towards one that I would be okay with the TV show actually cutting or completely reworking. And I'm going with one where Ultimate Book Maniacs and I actually disagree, because I don't like the way Siuan and Gareth are portrayed. I like both characters individually, and I think I could like the two of them together, but I don't like the details of how their romance plays out in the books. I don't like that he sort of guilts her into acting as his servant even after he understands the circumstances that made her lie to him. I don't like that Swan thinks it's necessary to do his laundry to prove a point. I don't like the weird power dynamic this sets up. I don't like that she throws boots at him, and I don't like that he spanks her. Are you getting a theme here? I don't like physical punishment or violence among love interests. And in this case, I just feel like there's not enough here to redeem it like there is with Perrin and Faile. Ultimately, like I said, I would be okay if the show either removes this romance or just really reworks it and how the dynamic of these two come together. There's probably enough there to try and salvage it, but I'm not invested in it enough to care. Number 2, a small detail you hope they keep in the show. I hope we get to see Tom Maryland knuckling his mustaches or choking on his wine every time one of the two Rivers boys says something hilariously naive. That's it. It's just a hilarious detail that perfectly illustrates this dynamic of these young country boys out in the world with a master of the game. And I hope we get to see it. Number 3, favorite funny moment in The Wheel of Time. This one is so hard because there are so many of them. And one of the ways I went about narrowing it down was I realized that some of the moments that stand out to me happen to involve interactions between Matt and Elaine. There's just something about the way these two contrast with each other that brings out what's funniest about both of them. I can't honestly say that any one moment between the two of them is my absolute favorite, but for the sake of it, I will say the letter Matt writes when he's trying to get an audience with Elaine definitely had me rolling. And the follow-up of how will she know it's for me if he cleans up the misspellings and the swears, it was perfect. Number 4, a moment in The Wheel of Time that made you cry. I cry pretty easily, so there's a lot of moments that I could pick here. I'm going to talk about a few just briefly. For some reason, both times Hopper dies get me. The first one is a little bit surprising just because we've only just met Hopper. But it's something about the way Perrin experiences it that makes it really powerful. The other sequence that basically gets me all the way through, and this actually extends across 2 books, is when Rand and Tam meet again in the Gathering Storm. And Rand is Darth Rand, and he almost kills his father. But Tam seems to know that the son that he raised is still in there. And he goes to Cadsuane and asks her what she did to his son. And then Rand has his epiphany, and they meet again in Towers of Midnight. Rand apologizes, and Tam responds, "Nobody walks a difficult path without stumbling now and again. It didn't break you when you fell." That's the important part. And then Rand introduces Min to him. Just the whole thing gets me. Number 5, favorite quote from The Wheel of Time. This is another extremely difficult one because there's, again, so many to choose from. I've even thought about doing a whole series of videos, like top 10 favorite funny quotes, philosophical quotes, iconic quotes. But this one from Lan always sticks with me. "You can never know everything, and part of what you know is always wrong, perhaps even the most important part. A portion of wisdom lies in knowing that. A portion of courage lies in going on anyway." Number 6, a missed opportunity with the one power. So a lot of people have pointed out there are missed opportunities involving gateways, and more specifically, using them for some form of long-distance communication. Could not agree more with this, but I will go in a different direction because there's another thing that's always bugged me. We start to see the beginning of the one power being used to treat mental illness, but just very specifically when Nynaeve discovers a weave that she uses to remove madness caused by the taint for an Ashaman. But this is one specific application, and it really bugs me that the entire Yellow Aja thought that a single weave used like a blunt instrument for all physical ailments was sufficient. Nynaeve single-handedly shows them how backwards this is. But what about just garden variety mental illness? Is there nothing that could be done for people with depression or PTSD, etc.? Who knows, because they never tried. Number 7, who is your favorite side character besides Varen? Eliminating Varen from consideration was a good call because it's really hard to compete with such an epic level of awesomeness, even though there are tons of awesome side characters in the Wheel of Time. But I'm going to go with Brigitta. One of the things that's brilliant about Brigitta is that you would expect her to feel like this remote hero character because she's lived and remembers countless lives at first. But she doesn't. She feels real, and she gets so invested in the friendships that she has with Elaine, Nynaeve, Matt, and she just gets right down to earth with them. She's hilariously funny while also having a tragic story. Being ripped out of Teleron Riyadh, she gradually is losing her memories of former lives, and she doesn't know if she's tied to the wheel anymore, so she doesn't know if she'll get them back. And she doesn't know if she'll see her soulmate, Guidel Kane, again. She knows he's out there, but she doesn't know if the pattern is going to be able to bring them together again because of what's been done to her. So she lives with this very real possibility of losing her soulmate and losing even her memories of him. That's heartbreaking. But she goes on living. She makes real friendships. She keeps her sense of humor and she keeps fighting. So you thoroughly understand why she is a hero of the Horn. But at the same time, you'd be like, let's go have a drink. Let's go dancing because she feels real. So she's a really fabulous side character with a hugely emotional payoff to her story. Number 8, what was a theory you had while reading that turned out to be wrong? So when I was first reading the series, I really did enjoy reading fan theories on all kinds of different topics, things that I had questions or was intrigued about. But probably because I didn't really have a lot of conversations with other Wheel of Time fans at the time, I never really got into crafting my own theories at that point, which is a bit odd because I really like speculating and putting pieces together. But I did find that the fan theories that I was drawn to tended to be the really wacky ones that you could tell someone put a lot of thought into. So there's 2 that stick out to me that I really wanted to be true but turned out not to be. For who killed Asmodean, I was always partial to the idea that it was Lanfear, even though we had just seen her dying. I was never fully convinced that she and Moiraine were dead, but we still had a logistics problem of how she would get there to kill Asmo. But I still liked the idea because I knew that he would instantly be afraid of her. And she had a real reason why she would want to kill him. So I just liked it more than the idea of another sort of random Forsaken that we didn't know as much about. There was a similar wacky theory I liked when we first met Nakomi. And if you remember, the timelines are all disjointed in The Gathering Storm and Towers of Midnight. So I wanted it to turn out that somehow Nakomi was Varen. And it was interesting to see people try to work out the timelines. Could it line up? Could Varen have enough time for this little side jaunt to go help out Avi? Yeah, so basically the theories I liked were these really wacky ones that involved characters I was invested in. In this case, I think I just wanted more Varen. Number 9, favorite Wheel of Time culture and why? If I'm thinking about Wheel of Time cultures that are the most developed and fully realized, it's hard to compete with the Aiel and the Shan-Chan. But I'm not going to pick either of these because I don't really fit in with either of them, and the Shan-Chan are also terrible. Since this is a favorite culture, I am going to pick the one that I feel like I actually would fit in with, and that is the Tuatha'an.
You may or may not have noticed, but this profile art is of me as a dancing Tuatha'an. This was done by Maria of Memo Art, which if you're not familiar with her, she does this adorable WoT chibi art in addition to other things. I'll provide you some links for her in the description.
Anyway, with The Way of the Leaf, it is a little bit more extreme than is actually reasonable, particularly in a world with shadow spawn. But in our current world, I think you basically could live your life following The Way of the Leaf. And in almost all circumstances, except for some really extreme edge cases, I believe in nonviolence. Now, I think someone does have the right to defend themselves and not let themselves be killed, but that's a really extreme case that's not going to come up most of the time. So I believe in nonviolence, and I believe in even what they say about violence doing harm to the person who does it, even if the circumstances required it. But if they can stay out of trouble, they basically have this happy communal existence. They travel the continent. They get to sing and dance and make music, and they have dogs, and they're vegetarian, which I am too. And they get to wear whatever crazy colors and patterns they want and just have fun with it. So basically all sounds great to me. Number 10, pick a character from another book series who would be a great Amerlin seat. I really tried to pick a character who was not from the Stormlight Archive. I did. But this choice was just so fresh in my mind, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I'll tell you at the very end, when I name this character, it will be very mild spoilers for Rhythm of War. She is in earlier books, but it is really in Rhythm of War where you start to see how truly great she could be in an Amerlin seat type role. I'll also tell you I'm working on a reaction video to Rhythm of War, which will contain spoilers. That'll be coming out soon. I'm just processing my reactions to this book. But one of the reasons I am excited to talk about it is because of this character and her storyline in that book, which, if you've read it, is, of course, Navani Kholin. What a queen and what a thrilling storyline she has to talk about in Rhythm of War. Now I'm supposed to tag some content creators to participate in this book tag. I know I'm super late to the party, so I'm guessing a lot of people have already been tagged. If you're watching this, definitely consider yourself tagged, and please put up your own video if you're a content creator. And from everyone else watching, I would love to see your responses in the comments. Give me your answers to these 10 questions. I'll also just officially tag The Way of the Leaf because I was talking about that in this video, so they're on my mind, and I'll probably tag some other folks when I post this. But make sure to like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and I'll see you next time.